everyone. Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. Unsealed grand jury transcripts detail alleged misconduct by prosecutors in the Broadview 6 case. The Bears say they're moving to Indiana, but Illinois lawmakers are keeping the door open. Chicago's first ever director of LGBTQ plus affairs talks about his new role and Pride Month.
I've done this to prove that women's sports can sustain an actual business.
And a first for Wrigleyville, a bar dedicated to women's sports. First off tonight, a crock of you-know-what is how one grand juror referred to the case of the so-called Broadview 6 during grand jury proceedings last fall. It's just one of the revelations in newly unsealed transcripts that detail the alleged misconduct by federal prosecutors in attempts to charge and prosecute 6 individuals who protested the federal government's immigration tactics outside the ICE detention facility in Broadview. During that incident, shown here, prosecutors alleged the defendants banged aggressively on a government vehicle and broke one of its mirrors and rear windshield wipers. The redacted transcripts show jurors had questions about whether any of the damage could have occurred prior to the incident and why the agent driving never called for backup. The case eventually collapsed entirely, with prosecutors dropping charges and U.S. Attorney Andrew Boutros publicly apologizing in court. And we'll be joined by some of the former Broadview 6 defendants on tomorrow's program. Property owners will have more time to pay the second installment of their 2025 taxes because the bill will be about 2 months late again. Second installment property tax bills are usually released in early July and due in early August. But Cook County officials say you'll have until at least October. It's not the first time bills have been late, with delays caused by an overhaul of the county's property tax system that's been plagued with problems. Board President Tony Preckwinkle's office has previously said most of the issues had been resolved, but in a statement today says the long-term solution is structural reform, including clearer responsibility, fewer handoffs, and greater accountability. In the meantime, her office is reopening and expanding a $300 million bridge fund program to provide no-interest loans to local taxing bodies waiting for property tax revenue. With the World Cup kicking off this week, North America is set to be the center of the sports world. But some critics say the United States isn't exactly rolling out the red carpet. The Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights today called out the enhanced scrutiny and travel restrictions reportedly faced by African and Middle Eastern teams and officials.
We need to be very clear. This is rooted in the racism of this administration, and it is nothing more but an extension of the Arab and African ban that was put forward just a few months ago. It is totally unacceptable for a host nation of an international sporting competition to treat people this way.
Among the reported incidents, the Iraqi team photographer and a Somali referee were turned away at airports, while the Iranian national team will have to enter and exit the country on match days. Up next, are the Bears heading across the state's border? That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
The Chicago Bears will build their next stadium in Hammond, Indiana. Maybe. The team made the announcement Friday after years of negotiations with state lawmakers in Illinois over a deal to build a stadium in Arlington Heights and a continued push by some city leaders to stay in Chicago. In the meantime, Indiana lawmakers quickly approved the incentives Bears leadership had long sought from Illinois. But some Illinois leaders say the team's move isn't a done deal and that they'll keep working on a stadium bill of their own. Joining us now with more are Earl Harris Jr., a Democratic state representative in Indiana representing East Chicago, and Mark Gannis, president and co-founder of sports business consulting firm Sports Corp. Thank you both for joining us. Mark Gannis, over to you first. So, Last Friday, the Bears announced that they would be, quote, advancing stadium development project in Hammond, Indiana. Advancing our stadium development project in Hammond. How done of a deal is this to you? What does that signal?
It's very far along. If you want to think of it on a continuum, think of it as, say, 80% of the way there. And every month that goes by, every week that goes by, that probability increases. Is there, has there been an opening for Illinois to kind of get its act together after the session ended? Sure. And I think that window is still open, but we've seen no activity by the political leadership to actually come together on a single plan that they will commit to and present to the Bears. So it seems in many ways the Illinois leadership has given up, and every day that goes by, Hammond becomes more and more of a reality.
You say very far along, Mark, but have the Bears not already made a pretty significant investment in Arlington Heights? Is it that easy for them to get out of that and move on?
Yeah, it is. That's a great piece of dirt. They've got, let's say, $250 million into that piece of dirt now after demolishing the racetrack and doing the environmental testing and all that. That piece of dirt isn't going anywhere. So that land is going to be valuable, whether in whole or in part, to developers and other parties. It's very hard to find 300 contiguous acres right off a highway in Cook County. So over the course of time, they'll be able to do well on the land while they build a stadium in Hammond.
Representative Harris, you were a co-sponsor of the legislation that was instrumental in convincing the Bears to make the move to Hammond. Remind us of what that legislation did.
Yeah, the legislation basically put together the financial structure for how the stadium will be paid for. So we had done, I authored previously a sports commission bill, which was aimed at bringing professional sports in. So that became the next stage of it once the Bears really got serious and started talking about coming to Northwest Indiana.
Okay, so Mark Yannis, these stadium authorities are pretty commonplace among NFL teams, are they not?
Very much so. It's the standard way that stadiums are developed and teams occupy these buildings.
What do we know about what Illinois officials have said about why they aren't willing to match the incentives that are offered by Indiana?
Well, Illinois never needed to match the incentives. All they needed to do was come up with a feasible deal, and they never did that. Indiana is putting up $1 billion going into the stadium. The Bears never asked for any money from Illinois to go into the stadium. Indiana's doing the infrastructure. The Bears asked for infrastructure. Indiana's providing land. The Bears were going to provide the land. So it's a very different deal. The Arlington Heights deal is superior from the taxpayer perspective, but Illinois never showed up with a final deal. They went back and forth from mega projects bill, and in the end, Senator Cunningham's bill was the right one, but they didn't leave themselves any time to do it.
Representative Harris, here's how Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, how he reacted in a statement last Friday, quote, while Indiana is willing to raise taxes and promise $1 billion in taxpayer funds, Illinois has focused on the needs of working families who want relief at the gas pump, at the store, and on their insurance bills, not taxpayer-funded stadiums. What do you make of Speaker Welch's characterization of Indiana's effort?
Yeah, there's been this attempt to make it sound like if you live in Northwest Indiana in Lake or Porter County, you're going to receive a tax bill that's going to go to the stadium. That's not how it works. That's not what's in the legislation. There's an innkeeper's tax, so that means if you stay at a hotel, there's an increase in that will go out. That does not mean local people. That means people coming from really outside, because if you live local, you're not going to stay at a hotel. There's a food and beverage tax, which really equates to 1 penny per dollar, so it's very minimal. And then there'll be a tax on a fee on if you go to an event, whether it's a Bears game, a concert, MMA, whatever it is. So there's been this attempt to make it sound like if you live in East Chicago or Gary or Hammond or Porter County, you're going to receive a bill. That's not how this is going to play out.
Representative, what have you heard from constituents and voters about this possibility?
Lots of excitement. I mean, people have been asking since we were in session, after session, when is this going to become concrete? When's the timeline going to be put in place? There's so much enthusiasm about what this will mean to Northwest Indiana in terms of economic development, in terms of careers, in terms of just enthusiasm about living there.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker was willing to commit taxpayer dollars towards the public infrastructure around a potential stadium in Illinois, but not towards the stadium itself. Will Indiana taxpayers have to pay for any stadium construction? Representative.
So my understanding is the Bears will provide $2 billion. And that's big. Again, some of the false narrative has been, oh, they're going to get a free stadium. They're not going to have any involvement, but they will actually contribute a lot to this. So we put together a great plan. When you look at what Indiana does and has done in the past in reference to the Pacers, in reference to the Colts, in reference to the Speedway, we do this very well. And so putting together a great package, a great deal for the Bears was something that we knew how to do. And I think we did a great job and have provided a great offer and put it on the table for them.
$2 billion. Mark Gannis, give us a sense of the potential price tag for a stadium in Hammond.
I think it'll cost $3 to $3.5 billion by the time they're done. This project has languished for so long, and inflation on construction has increased so much that my guess is it's going to be $3 to $3.5 billion. The NFL will participate in the financing. There'll likely be PSLs, those are the seat licenses, in which the fans will participate, and the rest of the money is coming from the Chicago Bears themselves.
Representative Harris, which sites have the Bears expressed interest in?
The city of Hammond, Wolf Lake area has been the main location. There has been talk of possibly another location in Hammond. I don't have a concrete place to say where that is. I do want to add, when you look at what we're going to do or what's going to happen, it will be a stadium where football, concerts, et cetera, obviously where the Bears will play. There will also be a mixed use area. So you're talking about restaurants, you're talking about bars, you're talking about business offices. So when you talk about economic development and also workforce and job creation, it's going to also be a bigger part of that. What you really see now in the country is less of a stadium being by itself, kind of on an island, but a lot around it. So people can come, eat, hang out, have fun, tailgate, do all kind of fun stuff in that area.
Mark, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, he also released a statement on Friday in reaction to this, saying, quote, over the last several years, the Bears have stated their intentions in multiple jurisdictions. Today's announcement is not surprising. Without a final site selection, until we see shovels in the ground in Hammond, the city of Chicago will continue to engage in discussions grounded in the interests of our residents. Does Chicago have a chance at keeping the Bears here?
You know, Brandis, this is one of the strangest spins that I've heard on this project. The Bears have said unequivocally that the only two sites they were looking at were Hammond and Arlington Heights. They said it a long time ago. They presented those two sites to the NFL Stadium Committee. And then somebody passes a rumor that the Bears talked to a lawyer for the Bears, talked to a lawyer for the city, and talked about coming back to the city. And that then took off as reality, as truth. I don't believe that actually happened, Brandis. I've talked to some of the principal involved. I don't believe that happened, but boy, that was enough to give Chicago legislators a fig leaf to be able to not vote on the Arlington Heights plan. And I think that was the mayor's intention. Very, very bad governance.
Couple seconds left here. Representative Harris, you know, the Bears have been a little bit around the map on this until recently. Are you concerned at all that their statement could be smoke and mirrors?
No, I feel good about it. You know, Mark said 80%. I agree with him. I think 80, if not even higher. Again, we've done a great job in putting something out there for them. They have been in contact and communication. So I'm looking forward to the day that we're sitting in Hammond at a stadium at the Bears' first home game.
All right. Best of luck to you both. Thanks so much for joining us. Representative Harris, Mark Gannis, thanks.
Thank you.
Up next, new support for LGBTQ plus Chicagoans. As Chicago celebrates Pride Month this June, it will also mark the first 6 months on the job for the city's first ever director of LGBTQ+ affairs. Earlier this year, Mayor Brandon Johnson appointed Antonio King to that first ever position. A longtime advocate and former liaison for the Public Health Department, King's priorities include supporting LGBTQ+ youth and elders and keeping trans and non-binary Chicagoans safe. Joining us is Antonio King, Director of LGBTQ+ Affairs for the City of Chicago. Congrats on the new-ish job. Thanks for joining us.
It's still newish.
It's still newish, right? You found the bathrooms in City Hall and all that. So you've worked in advocacy in this space for over 40 years. Why do you think the city needs a position like yours?
Oh my God, over 40 years, that makes it sound so old. But
you started as a baby, it's okay.
Yeah, 12. We need this position because the community of LGBTQ in Chicago do need someone that they can go to for business issues, safety issues, access to medical care, and a lot of quality of life issues and concerns that may not be addressed had this position not existed.
How do you think the needs of the community have grown and evolved over your time?
Well, over time they've grown because so many people have come into the awareness of themselves. And not only that, we're in so many different aspects of life, so many careers, and so many things throughout the city where we're contributing to. We want to make sure that we're noticed, we got voice. That's why you have so many letters behind the LGBTQIA through Z. Once someone comes into the knowledge of themselves, they want their voice heard and they want to be seen and feel like they're visible.
What are some of the issues that are top priority for you right now?
Top priority, making sure that we can get training, culturally sensitive training in all of our city departments, addressing any needs that our aging LGBTQ adults may have, such as finances, such as facilities and such, and to address our LGBTQ youth and young adults that are homeless and looking for places to go in mental health services.
You've been on the job about 5 months, 6 months, yes, as director. Oh, congrats. What are some of the policy highlights that you're most proud of? What have you been able to get up to in these 6 months?
Those three things. Lovely. Mayor Brandon Johnson wants to have an LGBTQ policy plan. No other city has that, and we've never had one. So I'm working on that, and the three things that I just named are 3 of the 6 priorities that we've identified. And I can't give you all of them because he hasn't signed off on all of them yet. But
okay.
That's what we're working on, the mayor's LGBTQ policy plan for the entire city of Chicago for our community.
So in the press release where the mayor announced your appointment, he said that this is important now more than ever because the community is facing increasing attacks from the Trump administration. We also know that CPS CEO Macklin King has been subpoenaed by Republicans for the district's Black Student Success Plan. Do you have any concerns about federal intervention intervention against your plans for this role?
Not against our plan, because luckily, Illinois and Chicago, we're an amazing city and state for the LGBTQ+ community. Not only are we a safe haven, but we're supported here, and we are encouraged here, and we're encouraged here. But I am concerned about federal funding across the board for many of the programs for our agencies in the city that depend on those programs and those fundings to help the quality of life for so many of our citizens that are LGBTQ+. So yes, I'm very concerned at that. But what we do here in Chicago, we help to lead the rest of the country, the way I see it, in the LGBTQ forum. So the things that we do that are innovative that Mayor Johnson is doing, I think that those will be replicated, and I think that the federal government ultimately will have to come across what we need to do and help us and support.
Have you seen those funding, some of those funding cuts already have an impact on the community here?
Absolutely. We have many delegate agencies such as Southside Help Center, Task Force, Howard Brown. They've experienced funding cuts, and they've had to let go of programs, which means that there are lives that are being affected. Homelessness, how we have a very bad homeless situation in Chicago, not just with the LGBTQ+ community, but the city as a whole. So those fundings have been cut. SNAP benefits, as you know as well, have been cut, and they've been decreased there also. So yes, we've definitely seen some issues with that, and we're trying to support that as well as best we can at the city level.
I'm listening.
But we're at the, no, I'm trying to, at the city level, as best as we can, we're trying to support them. There are initiatives that we're doing in the mayor's office to, where I would go to them and say, this is how you can help with, this is what you can do with the funding you have. We're trying to do some other things with it, trying to give them a diverse outline of portfolio of funding is what I'm trying to say, trying to help them secure other funding by donations and things like that, support sponsors and such.
So, okay, so, well, and I want to keep it going too, because there's a lot that you have to work on. So, because a Chicago public media investigation found that most of the murders of transgender women in Chicago go unsolved. Last year, the city launched a task force to address some of the anti-trans violence across the city. What are your plans to protect trans and non-binary Chicagoans?
So, what Mayor Johnson has done, last year he came up with he introduced the transfemicide ordinance, which helps to protect and secure trans people in the city of Chicago. I'm trying to make sure that I get it correctly, because what we're doing is we're making that part of our policy plan. We've shored up that by going to community. We've had many trans individuals to come in and give us feedback on what that plan should look like concerning safety, concerning workforce development, concerning employment and such. So these are some of the ways that we're trying to work with CPD. They've had an amazing training, cultural sensitivity training, and where they have been very instrumental in allowing the trans community in Chicago to feel comfortable when they're engaging with the police because of the training that they've had. So we're hoping that the murders, one, can go get investigated. They haven't been investigated, so they haven't been solved.
Illinois Republican Congresswoman Mary Miller, she has introduced legislation to end federal recognition of Pride Month and to replace it with Family Month, which is, of course, drawn some scrutiny from her Democratic challengers. What do you make of that move?
We need Pride Month. Pride Month is important because there's some young adult LGBTQ person who's thinking that it's better to be dead than be alive. And Pride gives them an opportunity to see representation and gives them the opportunity to feel good about themselves. So we need Pride. We don't need another Family Month. We need to continue Pride. I didn't know about that, and I kind of got mad about that thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it was frustrating for you. Quickly, a recent Gallup poll shows that the support for gay marriage has declined. Last year, 65% of U.S. adults say marriages between same-sex couples should be recognized. That is down from 71% 4 years ago. There are more stats on the screen. About 30 seconds. Why do you think this change is happening?
Brandis, you have really done your homework. You are such a good reporter.
Thank you, and credit to the team here, too.
My thoughts are we have to do a better job of getting to know each other. Years ago, and I marched for marriage equality, so I understood that 50% of the country didn't want it, but once we put a face on who these individuals are, put the humanity back into LGBTQ, we're not just some statistics or some monolithic community. We are your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your hairdressers, of course, and some other individuals. Yes. We are human. Put the human face on it, and I think that we can bring them back around.
And we're your LGBTQ plus director for the City of Chicago, Antonio King. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, an inside look at a brand new spot for women's sports fans. Wrigleyville's sports bar scene has a new watering hole, and this one is dedicated to women's sports and their fans. Joanna Hernandez recently spoke with the owner of the new bar and got a sneak peek at her game plan. Here's another look.
Hi, my name's Clarissa Flores. Welcome to Level Sporting Club.
It's under construction now, but soon this site in Wrigleyville will be all about women's sports, all the time.
The norm is now walking into a sports bar and it's a men's game and you have to ask for the women's game.
But at this bar, women's sports is taking center court.
I was going through a lot of different names, but for me, Level stood out the most because I'm here to level the playing field for women's sports.
Steps away from Wrigley Field, Flores is tapping into a fan base she says is already here.
Wrigleyville is the entertainment district of Chicago, and I wanted to take my seat where we belong. I didn't want to be in the outskirts. People don't realize this, but the majority of the fans that go to Wrigley are women.
Flores is an athlete herself. She played Division I basketball at Northwestern University.
I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. My whole life and my whole career is indebted to the sport of basketball. And you know what we're experiencing right now, not just here, which I'm trying to contribute to, but we're experiencing a cultural shift. And that cultural shift is towards women's sports.
So tell me a little bit about the vision of this first level.
Yeah, so the first level up here is gonna be where all the action's at. Upbeat sports bar, music, vibe, food, TVs, you know, it's the whole shebang up here.
And downstairs, a completely different game plan.
So this is gonna be my lower level key club. I'm gonna have a piano player down here, sing-along piano vibe where the piano player is playing Eminem, Beyonce. It'll be a high energy vibe, but on a piano. It'll be sexier, loungier, candlelit, darker type of vibe. So if you're trying to do like a date night, you come down here. If you want all the fun and excitement, you go upstairs. So
She's stepping into one of the fastest growing audiences in sports, backed by a strong roster of women investors.
My team that I built was intentional. Jennifer King, who coached the Chicago Bears, was a running back coach, and the Washington Commanders. Ashleen Bracey, who's the head coach of UIC women's basketball. I have an MIT basketball player. I have a University of Chicago soccer player. My culinary partner is a two-time Bib Gourmand chef who played soccer for the University of Texas. What I'm doing now is for the communities, the LGBT community, the women's sports community. That's a culture that I'm trying to build up now.
She says basketball has opened doors for her, and now she wants to give that same opportunity to the next generation.
Hopefully in doing this, it gives, younger girls that are growing up, hey, women's sports can sustain a business, or hey, I can make a career out of women's sports. To be able to give back is amazing.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
Level Sporting Club officially opened its doors to the public last week. To learn more, visit our website. And that's our show for this Tuesday night. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that supports educational initiatives in the legal profession.